Well, hello and welcome again to Silver Tent TV. This is series two, episode two of the 40 Rules of Love. And today we are going to be discussing rules 13 and 14. Now, these rules of love were inspired by a novel. We were discussing it at a book club. The novel is The 40 Rules of Love by Elif Shafak, and it's set in the times of Rumi and also based around Rumi's relationship with a dervish, a traveling dervish, who was known as Shams of Tabriz. So these 40 rules of love are apparently created by Shams of Tabriz, a fictional character, but maybe there is some truth in them, and we shall see how they resonate during our discussion today. So, joining me today is Emily Love and Christine Miller. So, I'm going to ask you two ladies to introduce yourselves if you would. So, Emily, starting with you, just a quick introduction to who you are and what you do, please.
Hello, I'm Emily and I create events which bring people together, connect everyone, and generate love.
Fabulous. So, love by name, love by nature, love in work. Uh, Great job. And Christine, how about you? Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Christine Miller. I am part of and the guide for a movement called The Source of Love, bringing love to our lives in general, but particularly to love in organizations and exploring what love is alive and working in all our lives.
Fabulous. And of course, we all need more understanding and exploration and knowledge about love that we can use in in our real lives. Because let's face it, I think it's a cliche, the world needs more love. But that said, let's I'm going to share the a copy of the rules we're looking at. Oops, initially that's not the right one. Um, so I'm going to share this, and yeah, best laid plans, eh? Um, they should pop up in a second. You know, when you prepare things and you have everything ready, and then when you go to press the button, it disappears. So here we are. So the first rule that we are going to look at today is rule number 13. And this rule says try not to resist the changes. Try not to resist the changes which come your way. Instead, let life live through you. And do not worry that your life is turning upside down. How do you know that the side you are used to is better than the one to come? Now, I read this again yesterday and I thought, wow, this is a fascinating one. There's a whole range of things that we could talk about here around, you know, is the grass greener or is what we have perfectly okay? What about resisting the changes? So, for first comments on this, what's your initial reaction to this? I'm going to go to Emily first.
I just screenshotted it. I couldn't get rid of it. Right. Um, um, I am going to just make, sorry, I'm going to just make it come up again so I can see it. But yeah, I was reading this and thinking about this again as well yesterday, change. Um, if you are familiar with the tarot cards, there's a card in there which I think of as better the devil you know, which to me mirrors perfectly the sort of message of this rule. And in the tarot, it shows this figure in chains. And it's like where in life we're chained to that the way of being that we've always done things, whether it and it's better the devil you know, which this rule absolutely isn't. And I feel really strongly about this in life, is that we tend to resist change, whereas actually change is the only certainty. I feel like we spoke about this before, but it's as natural as the seasons, and that's why nature and the seasonal changes are so relevant for us. So back to better the devil you know. So if we put it into sort of context of today, which is 2025, in the Western world where we're all living, we have this kind of sort of structure of our lives and certain things of how we live, who we live with, what we do for work and to make money, etc. And a sort of really kind of traditional example might be where somebody is in a job that is no longer working for them, that they kind of ache not to go to, and something else that they are too scared to change. It's a very, very long story about my buying a new car yesterday, but I spoke to the young man there who was 29, and he said he's been there for 8 years in this car sales showroom, 8 years. And I said, do you like it? And he was kind of like, yes, good. Get a holiday, get a pension. And I was telling him all these Napoleon to read, think, and grow it. But the thing is, we think, well, we've got it good enough, or sometimes it's not even good enough. But it's our brain thinks, my brain certainly thinks it's easier to stay in something that I'm familiar with. Oh my gosh. And I don't know, the brain is hardwired for that. I don't know if we've got any psychologists, but the brain is hardwired to stay with the familiar, however painful or uncomfortable that might be. So rule 13 about change is that change, for me, change is the only certainty. I can't give any tips about how to let go and lie back onto the magic carpet ride of life and just trust. But when you find yourself, and when I find myself stuck, which is in this kind of, you can recognize it because it feels like that. Yeah, it's really great. It's got a pension. Or yeah, well, I've only got another. This is probably the most important one of 40 rules of love for me. To let go. It isn't better the devil you know. It is actually us becoming more comfortable with the unknown. There, in that place of unknown, is where all possibility resides. And I'm going to stop there.
Absolutely brilliant. And many people, as we know, are stuck in what they know because they fear. They're frightened of something different, or they have some experience that keeps them locked there and frightened to try anything different. And there's a whole world of possibilities out there. And it's just, as I tell my clients, it's about taking that first step, making the decision. This is not enough. Something needs to change. And at that point, that's the first step to move into whether it's love or some other aspect of your life. There is more out there. We should never be settling for less than. And this is the problem. We are conditioned and trained by society to be these good people and accept less than. And sometimes you pop out the other end and realize actually less than is not good enough because they've been lying to us about so many things. Let's talk pensions, let's talk, work for 40 years, all the rest of it. Whose agenda is it really serving? But anyway, that's not what we're necessarily here to talk about today. That's possibly for another session altogether. So I'm going to ask Christine about your views on rule number 13. Perhaps you'd like to unmute and share with us now too.
Yes, I'm delighted to. I'm going to actually read something to you because I think this rule is particularly appropriate to my life, probably as a whole, in that I've been through huge amounts of change, which I've embraced very willingly at times, and other times with some reluctance. But I've had some big change recently, and I had found that my flow of creativity had been severely inhibited by various things. So, and then all of a sudden on the 12th of May, I had this surge of a changed energy, a transformed energy even. And so I'm going to read to you what came through me about change. I think it sums up perfectly how I feel now, how I have felt, and it reflects this rule very closely. So this is a poem called So Many Little Deaths. And it came from the fact that after a fallow spell in which little writing or much else flowed with ease, today I had a burst of inspiration as this poem, So Many Little Deaths, emerged with a vibrancy and an irrefutable sense of re-engagement. Some of you will already know that I fell seriously ill at the end of 2024. And in early 2025, I spent 12 days in intensive care, after which experience I really feel glad to be alive and experiencing a resurgence of health and vitality. Such experiences lead us to times of reflection and reassessment. We die many little deaths along the way to recovery, letting things go and finding joy in new and altered states. We grow from our losses and gain insight and renewed strength from our courage to accept and embrace the new. As it is in our lives overall, we adapt, change, transform, pare down, and build up. So Many Little Deaths feels like a shift and a sublime breakthrough. This is a definite step into my courageous, emergent self, with a powerful expression from experience and a sense of great joy. I have a strong and lively sense of emergence, of resurrection even, as I come back to my life and legacy projects with fresh ideas, great purpose and determination to step gracefully back into my commitment as a resource of love and to lead a movement towards greater harmony, peace and care in our world. And this is a poem called So Many Little Deaths. Each moment a beginning and an ending, flickers of renewal, flames of destruction, time consumed yet eternal. Who shall we be today? Will we allow the unknown to set alight imaginings, fleeting gifts of visions to be realized, stitched into the cloth of consciousness? Or will they die in flight, flaking into brief embers, glowing or dulling, greying or powdering into the dust of eternity? Revivified in reflection, fertile nourishment for future flow, tender pulsing, eternal presence, indestructible, creator of souls, forever engraved on the indelible palette of the dance with life and death. So that is pretty much sums up my feelings about change and transformation, which I prefer to call it, and living through enforced change and coming out and valuing the experience so that we can grow. Because as the final line says of Rule 13, how do you know that the side you are used to is better than the one to come? For me, I'm certainly in a much better place than I was before.
Wow, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And wow, there's so many things that we could pick up on from there. The balance between life and death. It's a fine line, isn't it, between that moment of accepting what is and moving into what could be, or new possibilities. And wouldn't it be lovely if it didn't take something happening to us that we could naturally embrace these things, rather than having to have some kind of event almost force us into the direction. Well, that's my view on it. Emily, perhaps you'd like to comment further on that.
What what do you want me to say? Oh, we're not going into 14. Oh, you've put yourself on mute.
Yes, we will do shortly. Just any response to, Christine's comments, the
Oh,
poem, the
Christine's
before
poem.
we.
Thanks for writing that poem. Love that. Um, yeah, it was a beautiful poem. And I just think the thing that touched me the most was that you said, you know, that's where I've just been. I've had this first-hand experience of exactly this. And you said it's far better on this side than it was on the other, I think. I think you said that,
Yeah.
which touched me and inspired me and motivates me to think, oh, okay, let's see what I can't achieve, as a result of your extremely challenging experience.
Yeah.
As my
Yeah.
yeah.
If you want to read it again, it is on my website, which is thesoulpoet.org, and it is there. I one of the things that happened during my illness was that I managed to lose the domain name, which was soulpoet.org. It expired and I couldn't get it back, so I had to get a new one, and I lost the website completely. And so it's very rudimentary and being rebuilt at the moment. So, but it is there. This is one of the few things that I've got on there.
Well, there you go. Another change. The important things are visible.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm conscious of time as well. So we should, as Emily pointed out, we should take a look at
Sorry,
rule number 40.
I thought it was a good touch. I just was kind of like, yeah, I was in the old. I'm ready for change.
Ready for change, right? Well, we've discussed change. Let's move on to the next one. So, rule number 14. And I'm sure all of these, as we've been discussing in previous sessions, they're all aligned, they're all linked in some way. If you look for the threads, there are threads running through them. So this rule 14 says God is busy with the completion of your work, both outwardly and inwardly. He's fully occupied with you. And every human being is a work in progress that is slowly but inexorably moving towards perfection. We're each an unfinished work of art, both waiting and striving to be completed. God deals with each of us separately because humanity is fine art of skilled penmanship, where every single dot is equally important for the entire picture. Wow, what a lovely concept that is. We are all unique works of art. How about that? Emily?
Yeah.
How do you respond to that? I think that is beautiful. When I first looked at it, I'm like, oh, this is a lot of words. What's this saying to me? And it didn't jump out until I just read it out loud there.
I think about this a lot. Everyone that's here on earth, if we were all able to just do the thing that we uniquely can do, while all others are also doing their own unique thing, without judgment, without comparison or expectation, just be that, we would come together in this beautiful coagulation of harmony. I think humans do have the capacity for that. We together all make up the whole. When one of us goes, the whole makeup of the universe shifts, whether we realize it or not. So many times I hear people say to me, but I can't find my purpose, or what's my role, what am I supposed to be doing? But actually, you're already doing it. You don't even realize the impact that you are having on the ripple effect, the whole people and life around you. It's not necessarily something that we can always consciously recognize, but when we start to tap into consciously recognizing it, then we get a sense of this, a drop in the ocean and an ocean in a drop. Together, we all make up the whole, and every single one of us is as relevant as every other one. I think it's vastly important to, I wish at school, when we went to school, the school was about teaching us how to experience, how to feel, how to recognize what we feel, and how to trust that. I did a talk a couple of weeks ago called How to Make Your Life Your Own Work of Art for the Somerset Women's Institute, and ended up dancing down the aisles to Vivaldi's Spring. And I think that I think this Rule 14 taps into that of, what choices are we making? How can we, going back to the 13, how can we change things, let go of ideologies that we've outgrown, and so that we can kind of carve out a life more suited to us, yourself, not the world around us or family, friends, but what actually makes our heart sing, and what actually makes us come alive. That's how the world has been created, for each and every one of us to sing and shine. I think that's what this Rule 14 is emphasizing for us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Emily. And I'm picking up out of that definitely there's a need to celebrate our uniqueness and celebrate our differences, rather than attack each other for being different. And that through being ourselves and understanding our uniqueness and our unique place, and how it's fine for everybody to be different, that somehow, rather than create divisions, that creates unity. Because, as you said, we're all parts of the one whole, and often that is just not visible. We don't see it, we don't believe it. We're trained out of thinking like that, with so many things that go on in the world around us. So I was quite surprised, actually, how I reacted to this rule. And as all of them, once you start exploring them, all sorts of other things pop out. I'm sure we could spend days talking about each individual one, but obviously we don't have days right now. So let's see what Christine has to say about Rule 14.
Rule 14, God is busy with the completion of your work. For me, I would expand the idea of God as the universe being active and as all being particles that have been set free into the universe. We're all kind of made of stardust, really. And although we may look different on the outside, the essential core of our humanity remains the same. And I agree that sometimes it's educated out of us, which really is against the concept of what education is, which is to draw out. Educere in Latin means to draw out. And our current education system often seems to stultify rather than to draw out. And I'm actually heartened by the Pope Leo and his immensely human approach to the universality of religion and the universality of love, that he's trying to reduce separation and encourage togetherness and a sense of unity. And that I think is a very, very encouraging sign. So the fact that I think there's a paradox in this sense of being incomplete, because we are here as complete human beings who are potentially being taken through the kinds of fires and purifications and honings that lead us to a greater self. And we are not always allowed to express the fullness of what ourselves encounters and what ourselves includes, because other aspects of the world aren't always ready for our greatness. They're not ready to accept that each individual human being has an immense power and an immense greatness. And there are those who would quell us and stifle us into a smaller being rather than this vast being with great energy and great awareness. So I feel that, yes, we're all constantly evolving towards some kind of predestined, or possibly not predestined, some kind of fullness of being that enables us to be part of this huge patchwork of beautiful humanity. But that isn't always evident, because there are forces out there that would have us be diminished, that would keep us in our place and would set rules that, unlike the 40 rules of love, suppress us rather than enable us to expand. And so I feel that the relevance of all the rules, but perhaps this one in particular, is to allow each of us to explore the fullness of our humanity and what humanity really means. Because, for example, if we look at love as being a supreme expression of what humanity is and can be, it's not particularly present in the world as it is today. If we look at politics, and if we look at history even, and if we look at the economics, there's a great divide. There's still a great divide. We are far from a democracy of humanity still, because often of perceived outer differences, that similarity, that constant core of what it is to be human is suppressed often. And we just need far more relationship to source, relationship to who we really are at our core, in order that we recognize each other. We recognize our light, we recognize the light in our eyes, the beating of our heart, the breath we take, and where in the core of our being we are beautiful human beings, perfectly imperfect as we progress through our lives. So that's what this means to me, and so much agree with every single dot is equally important for the entire picture. Very beautiful thought.
It is absolutely. And as you were speaking, a couple of things came to me. The fact that, you know, we enter this world, into this human body, as a blank canvas, as a unique individual human blank canvas with infinite potential. And it saddens me that we don't maximize that potential with the way society has been put together to constrain us, to control us, if you like. And as much as I can remember being told as a child, you can do anything you want. And every time I tried to do something that perhaps somebody else didn't agree with, I'm talking, you know, parents initially, I got stopped from doing those things. Minor things, and then they seemed bigger. But this is the challenge that happens with society and parents, and what will people think, and how we actually evolve. And when we're talking about evolution, I studied philosophy and religions at A level. And one of the things that has stuck with me since that time is there is no difference. When you dig beneath the surface of any religion, the principles are the same, and yet it is at the root of so many wars and so much death and destruction rather than love. Yet underneath, the fundamental principles are always the same. So how do we get to this situation? And I suppose what I'm also asking is what do you think we could do about it? Because obviously new children are constantly coming into the world. How can we make it better for them? How can we facilitate them being able to be that unique, you know, individual, that the dots that come through their life are dots of beauty and uniqueness and celebration, rather than the sorts of situations that we have now? So does that make sense? So Emily, you know, what would you suggest? Any ideas about what we could do differently?
I think I think I've got three things to say. One is I think of this generation. So if you're born in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, as the therapeutic generation, and people, our parents born in the 20s, 30s, 40s, just where that stiff upper lip, kind of just get on with it kind of ideology came in. And then all of us were undoing that through therapy and coaching and all of the myriad modalities we have for personal and spiritual development. I think, given that we've got this context of the connection of all humanity, every single dot makes up the whole. Can't remember that exact line. The babies, the children being born, coming through now, have benefited from all of our inner seeking and searching. And what I notice is that when I'm with very young children now, they seem to be a kind of almost a different breed, that all that work that we have been doing has impacted them. This is now very practically what we could then do to support that, and I do see a lot of young parents doing this, is that sense of allowing, hold on a minute, because so much to say here, that sense of this, because I'm thinking how you, but yeah, so the sense of allowing, so you, because you've done all that work, that inner work, you have more capacity to allow others, including your children. So that's that. What we could do is we could introduce beautiful celebrations where, so for example, when you're born, instead of being born and then you just kind of, that's it, you could have a celebration where you could welcome the child, saying, this is the moment the whole world has been waiting for. Here, I'm your father, I'm your mother. We, whatever you want to do it. We will support you. We could make these, and we could have, we don't have so many rites of passage. We have a bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah when you're 13 in Judaism. I don't know. There's confirmation. There's various different rites of passages, but perhaps at 13, 14, 15 we could have that, a ceremony of celebration of moving from childhood into adulthood, and all the different, rather than just having a godparent, make it more official. So make the child really, let's hone and harness and express very, very clearly, here, we are here to support you to be yourself, whatever. Let's just have more celebrations and rites of passage to really, totally off the cuff. I can't get my words, but yeah, I think you're nodding. So you must be getting an aspect of what I'm saying, and part of what I'm saying. Let's just make it really.
I think so. I'm hearing enabling and celebration rather than control. I'm hearing yes rather than no, and these kinds of things. And I see it with my little grandson, who is coming up to 8 months old now. And I was determined to be a different mother with my son, give him a different experience. And very much the case, I gave him wings. I facilitated him exploring and doing so many different things. And he has always been an amazing human and an incredible diplomat. And you see the love in him constantly. And now he's a father, and we have this little grandchild, this little baby, who I am seeing a whole other dimension in that, not just as being the grandmother, but I see the facilitation of that child to be himself, and constant daily celebration of him. And for a very small child, he is the most content, happy, smiley, and he is communicating. He's been communicating so much, but because they're not just treating him as this small baby who can't communicate, they're paying attention to him. So they totally get him and understand him. And I'm seeing it evolve in that sense, with that. And as he grows bigger by the second, and he is more able to express himself, then that is coming out even more. And they're truly listening to him, but he's listening to them too. We had a video the other last week where my son put the keyboard in front of him. He played a few notes. My grandson comes down like, he's really bashing it. But then he takes his hands off to his dad, who plays some more. And they did this about 5 times. The baby wasn't constantly just, I've got to do this, but he did a little bit. He played a few notes randomly. Then my son played some more. Then the baby did some more. And every time the baby took his hands off the keyboard, held them there in the air, and looked at his dad. And there was some, when you watch it, there's some incredible kind of communication going on there, some learning from both sides, but some enabling and facilitation as well, and also celebration of that. So I am seeing it. I'm hoping that there are more of that generation that are like that are doing with this with their children. I'm hoping so. So, Christine, would you like to come in here on that topic?
Yes, very, very much so. I think going back to birthing children, I studied when I had my first child. I studied very carefully how I wanted to have the child delivered, and opted for the Le Boyer method, which is where the child is born into stillness and calm wherever possible, wherever medically possible. And one of often there would be music playing, but it was, Le Boyer was a French obstetrician who was also a very interesting psychologist who decided and witnessed through births that the more peaceful the birth could be, then the happier and more bonded the child and the mother would be. And in those days, the mother would be the primary carer. So that was considered the primary relationship to establish. And I went on to study more and discovered this practice called mutual gazing, that provided the circumstances allow it, the moment your baby is put into your arms, preferably skin to skin, to engage in a mutual gaze in silence, to look into that baby's eyes. And I experienced this with both of my kids, and there is that moment of absolute connection. It's not just physical, it's an absolute spiritual connection where it's as if you accept and welcome and embrace each other. And that is not something that is widely known or widely taught, and I appreciate how busy hospitals and maternity labour wards don't necessarily have the luxury of being able to allow that. And if there are medical problems, then obviously it's a different thing. But I think one of the things we could do is to encourage that as a natural practice. And also those equivalent moments of stillness as the child is growing. I mean, breastfeeding obviously gives those opportunities, many opportunities for just gazing into each other's eyes. And it's a moment of peace and connection and love for everyone. And fathers also can hold their children and gaze into their eyes. And there's no question that you feel the soul and the spirit of that child in your arms, and as they grow. Like you, Liz, I have wanted my children to be open, caring, open to experience, courageous, but not foolhardy. And it felt like a huge compliment fairly recently. My son has taken on a pretty hefty senior management role at Price Waterhouse, and he's got a large team, but because of the pandemic, because of home working, hybrid working, and PwC introducing a rule that everybody has to come into the office, and they're not really acknowledging that people have made great changes to their lives since the pandemic, and they like being at home. And they've got out of the habit of especially having to travel into central London every day. And my son, his name is Alex, was kind of carefully negotiating this territory. And one of his superiors, the partner, paid him this enormous compliment. He said, "It's absolutely wonderful having you around, because you have this kind of white knight energy of goodness about you, that wherever we encounter you and whatever you do, there's this sense of gracefulness about what you do, and you're kind of like the white knight coming in to help us out." And it made me cry, actually. It was like, so it felt so it felt affirming for me, but it felt wonderful for him, because he's had some tough times himself. And I just, it said, made me think, well, everyone should have that. We have the opportunity at least to have that quality, to embrace that. I know we're all different, and we won't all be white knights or what golden goddesses or whatever it might be. But we don't really talk about mythology and archetypes and who can you be. As a child, you're Emily, I agree completely with your ideas of celebrating not just milestones, but celebrating life as it unfolds. And perhaps if we gave children the opportunity to role play as good characters, as mythological gods and goddesses, and to play in that sense of goodness and grace, then that could help. I mean, Rudolf Steiner had ideas about how education should be a holistic mind, body, spirit, soul, the whole deal should be embraced by education, that it's not just about IQ, but it's about the vast range of intelligences, and especially spiritual intelligence. And the Montessori method also has a kind approach. But our education system is still really based on churning out people to work, to rote in factories, because really in Victorian times, schools were founded for everyone in order that they would become compliant. And I feel that we need a completely different approach to how we raise and nurture children. And we've lost the benefit of extended family to a great extent. So we need to create the elders, we need to create the guides who are ordinary members of life, ordinary members of society, but everyone has something that they can give, and to bring us together so that we understand better, and those children, all children, are supported and feel loved and are entitled to that love and support. So I agree with Emily, I agree with you, Liz, that enabling children to be embraced as the future holistically is definitely one of the answers to the way our world is at the moment, torn by strife and war.
Absolutely. It's so true. And you're right, the education system literally taps into perhaps, 5%, if that, of what people are capable of, because it's channeling people in a particular direction. And there's so much more to explore. Um, and talking about exploring, I'm conscious of time. And I think we have to say that's all, folks, for today. As always, we could talk for hours, and I would like to say thank you both to Emily and Christine for sharing your thoughts on these two rules. I hope those of you who are watching this are inspired by it. Maybe you'd like to join us. Maybe you'd like to comment under the videos. Love to hear what you have to say, your experiences of love, the 40 rules, of change, of us as a unique canvas. So thank you both very much. And yeah, see you in episode 3.
Thanks so much, Liz. That's brilliant. Thanks, Christine.
Thank you, Emily and Liz. It's been a real pleasure. Bye.